Okay, we are back with Along Came a Wolf by Adam Dreece. So we are on chapter 11 in Sheep's Clothing. And I just want to say, for some reason, every time Nikolas Klaus talks, I hear the first Doctor from Doctor Who. Okay, a short, balding man in his 50s picked up his worn medical bag from the guard's inspection table. Nervous sweat poured at the base of his hairline. "Everything looks fine, Doctor. You may enter," said the young guard, unlocking the thick wood and steel door leading to the jail cells. "This guy gets too much attention, if you ask me. After all these weeks, he's still getting people dropping by. Most guys only get one visitor, if any, before they're shipped off, or, executed," said the guard with a slicing gesture. The doctor forced a smile, making his round face look awkward. "Special circumstances," he replied as he hesitatingly entered the small hallway. "We moved everyone else to the jail across the street. You never know with a guy like this one." "He's smart," said the guard as the doctor disappeared and the door closed behind him. At the end of the hallway were 3 sparsely furnished jail cells. Lulu was in the middle one, lying on its straw mattress and whistling. Once the bolt of the heavy door was locked back into place, Lulu turned to see who they had let into his cage. What fresh meat had they thrown him? It had been a couple of days since he'd had a visitor who wasn't a guard. "Hello, Doc." "Oh, it's you." "The other doctor," said Lulu, pretending to be disappointed. The doctor looked around uneasy. Lulu continued, "If you're wondering if there is an echo in here, there is, from the stone walls. There's nothing to drink up the sound. It's why I like to whistle here. The echo. It does give the place an eerie feel, though. Of course, they wouldn't want it to feel like home, now would they? It would spoil the experience." He sat up and stretched. "But you know all this already, don't you? It's not your first visit." The doctor tried to hide behind his bag as he made his way to Lulu's iron-barred cell door. How do you feel, Monsieur Lulu?" asked the doctor, adjusting his glasses. In the weeks that had passed since Lulu had been moved to the jail from the hospital, he'd neither shaved nor brushed his hair. He looked like a wild man. Lulu's main doctor had stopped visiting a couple of days ago, saying everything was fine. When he'd last left the jail, he'd been complaining about how the magistrate wanted Lulu kept in such a good health. A waste of the doctor's precious time, given the prisoner was going to be executed anyway. Lulu had meant to ask him about his other doctor, but he had had so much fun terrorizing the poor man that he'd forgotten to do so. With false graciousness, Lulu said, "Doctor, I do so appreciate your visit. Without you, I'd have just these kind gentlemen to talk to," he said, gesturing to the empty cells. "I must say, they aren't as amusing as they once were." The doctor frowned in confusion, looking to the other cells. "There's no one there," he said quietly. Lulu stood up and exaggerated his own glance at each of the other cells. "Well, I think they have grown a bit thin. The food here is terrible, even by local standards, especially the cheese. Substandard." Stretching once more, he stood up and found himself feeling a bit disoriented. Andre was vaguely aware that something inside himself had snapped that day outside of Klaus's house. He wasn't the man he'd once been. He felt freer and stronger, yet unbalanced, like a heavy club that could smash better but was harder to wield. Thoughts of revenge and restoring his reputation were increasingly dominating his thoughts. Meanwhile, his long-held professional code of ethics was melting away. Lulu looked at the doctor. "I don't have many friends here," he said sadly. "In some ways, I've even abandoned myself. How about we declare that we are friends? What do you say? You call me Andre, and I will call you Doctor." Lulu tried to give the doctor his most charming smile, but he was distracted. When he'd said his own first name aloud, it had felt foreign, as if he'd said someone else's name. He was only Lulu now. Oh, okay," replied the doctor submissively. "But my name is—" "Your name is Doctor! Don't demean yourself with a commoner's name, like mine. You are a special man, a smart man, who have devoted your life to an important profession. Allow me the honor of calling you Doctor." Lulu gestured dramatically, moving toward the bars. His intense green eyes drilled into the doctor's own. The doctor and Lulu stood only inches apart, the iron bars separating them. Lulu then leaned in further, his face pushed up against the bars. "You are a doctor, right?" he asked, grinning disturbingly. The doctor gulped hard and nodded. Sweat was running down his face and dripping off his chin. If Lulu had wanted, he could have reached through the bars and grabbed the frightened man, but he didn't. He gave the doctor a sheepish look and pulled himself back. "I've been too forward, haven't I? How rude of me! My mother always told me that all things come in good time. You can't rush a good thing like friendship. What do you think?" The doctor lost his grip on his back, and it dropped to the floor with an echoing thump. He quickly wiped his sweaty palms on his pants. "That's that echo," said Lulu. He watched the doctor's every muscle as he bent to pick up his bag. "So how is my friend?" asked Lulu, grinning. "That is why you are here, no, my friend? The horseman visited you and asked you to pay me one more visit, didn't he? I can tell." The doctor swallowed hard. He looked around in case someone he'd missed seeing someone else in the room. Yes, he stammered. Then we are friends. We should celebrate our friendship with a good meal. We could have some wine, some cheese, and whatever excuse you have for meat around here. What do you think? Yes, said the doctor, again confused. In a disappointed voice, Lulu said, But we have a problem. We cannot do this, not now. Do you know why? After a couple of awkward seconds, the doctor replied, unsure. Because you're in jail. He had been stepping back and now found himself pressed up against the black wall. Oh, I thought it was because of my new look. Not fitting for a man of class, I suppose, said Lulu, touching his face as he pretended to look in a mirror. He turned back to the doctor, grinned, and tapped his temple. But you are right, a smart man. That's why you are the doctor, and I am the prisoner. But now, as a friend, you will help me in a smart way, no? The doctor stared, expressionless, at Lulu. Lulu dropped his smile. He opened his graying eyes wide, almost as if he could swallow up the doctor. Right, doctor? The doctor nodded mindlessly. Lulu relaxed his gaze. Tell my horseman that I am being sent to the magistrate tomorrow morning to be judged. He will know what to do. Lulu stepped back, satisfied. The doctor stood motionless, unable to decide what to do next. Leave! Commanded Lulu. The doctor ran to the door and banged on it repeatedly until the guard opened it. How did it go? Asked the guard. The doctor slowly looked up from the floor to stare at the guard. His hollow eye silenced the guard. The doctor then mechanically walked up to the scheduled meeting with Captain Archambault. Tea was at home playing in the front yard when she spotted her grandfather coming down the road to the house. Planks of wood were sticking out of his cart, and she knew from experience it was likely filled with other materials as well. Nicholas regularly brought supplies over to build things with her and her father. The three of them loved it, and Jennifer loved watching them. The closer Nicholas got, the more curious Tea became. It seemed he was pushing the cart, the kind that was supposed to be pulled by a horse. Something didn't make sense. Before she knew it, she'd run up to him. Grandpapa, what are you doing? You shouldn't be pushing a cart like that. She took a closer look. Wait, how are you doing this? You aren't red in the face or sweating or anything. He gently let go of the handles and the cart quickly stopped. Whoa, said Tea, amazed. Nicholas smiled. I was inspired, my Tea. The whole thing with Lulu made me realize I cannot hide from who I am. Not from my involvement with the tub, and not from my most important ideas. I must get them out of the world, if not, others will steal them and twist them to evil ends. Tea nodded as she walked around the cart and then looked underneath. She marveled at the glowing blue lines that connected the strange large box under the cart to the various wooden gears. Why does it glow blue? Asked Tea. Magic, said Nicholas with a twinkle in his eye. What? Said Tea, frowning at him. You always said there's no such thing as magic. Nicholas chuckled. And there isn't. What is it then? Asked Tea, excited. Not just yet. Have a look first, said Nicholas, encouraging her curious nature. Examining the handles, Tea asked, How do these things just stay in the air without falling or rising up? They're just floating there. She wasn't quite sure if she should touch them. Ah, said Nicholas. It's actually very simple. First, they are weighted and balanced independently from the cargo area of the cart. This cart is really two separate devices connected for the purpose of movement. T peered into the cart but couldn't see what he meant. Nicholas continued pointing. Under this cargo area's floor is a hidden container filled with a heavy liquid. It keeps the cargo area perfectly level under normal conditions. He could see T trying to figure this out in her head. Get in, I'll show you, he said, and offered to lift her up. T hesitated before agreeing to go into the cargo area among the tools and materials. Now watch, said Nicholas as he thrust the handles into the air. He saw T's instinctive look of panic as he anticipated being tossed from the cart. Instead, nothing happened to her. She watched him mark the handles up and down. All the while, the cargo area didn't move. Wow, said T as she climbed down. Is the heavy liquid keeping it level because of... Nicholas made a fake cough and gave T his famous raised eyebrow. My granddaughter, you have taught me that I should explain the dangers and the safety parts first, before explaining how the rest works. Yes? Said Nicholas. T smiled guiltily. So do you think this is worthy of one of your lalas? Asked Nicholas, continuing the walk to the house and pushing the cart with ease. Maybe, said T cheekily. Nicholas took a moment to scratch his itchy, overgrown beard. He couldn't remember the last time he'd shaved or washed properly. Isabella used to always make sure that no matter how much she was focused on inventing something, that he looked respectable, ate properly, and met life's other obligations. He missed her. T took the handles from him and gave his cart a small shove. This cart feels as light as my backpack. Nicholas hid a yawn. Yes. Do you realize that you are pushing 50 pounds of cargo plus the weight of the cart at an inclined plane? This one is much better than the first one I built. How long ago was that? Asked T. Years ago. I've been trying to figure out this puzzle of propulsion for a long time. I have finally solved it, replied Nicholas. Wow, said T again, pushing the cart a couple of yards. When Nicholas yawned again, it was too big to hide from T. She raised an eyebrow of disapproval. Have you had any sleep, Grandpapa? Nicholas laughed. You sound like your mother. You don't need to worry. I'm fine for us to make some sail carts today. T smiled approvingly. One more thing, she said. Nikolas squinted in mock suspicion. Yes? I won't say anything to Mom about you not sleeping, if you'll let me push the cart the rest of the way home. Nikolas folded his arms and pretended to dwell on the proposal for a bit. That is acceptable. When they arrived at the house, T's mother came out, wiping her hands on a towel. What's this you built, Papa? I built it, he replied triumphantly. Built what? Asked Jennifer carefully, not wanting to assume she knew what he was talking about. He built a cart that doesn't need a horse, yelled T. I pushed it all the way from the dead tree to here. Me! Jennifer's jaw dropped. Papa? Nikolas thought back to the first time he'd brought the idea up a long time ago. He'd been enjoying a cup of tea and afternoon snacks with his wife, Isabella, and Jennifer, who was still a teenager. He'd expected them to laugh or to be skeptical, but they hadn't. They'd taken the opportunity to tell him how much they believed in him, and if anyone was going to change the world, they knew it would be him. It took me longer than I originally thought, but yes, I got it working properly, said Nikolas. It still needs a lot of improvement. I can make it last longer, be faster. I have many ideas I want to try. Jennifer slowly moved around the cart and examined the contraption. Papa, these gears and the rest of the mechanism. It has evolved a lot, she said proudly. The blue light! You always thought the energy would glow blue, but you could never get it to work. Nikolas looked at his daughter, smiling. So guess ingredient was missing from my formula. Guess! He asked her with a voice that reminded her of when she was a young girl. You now know that it glows blue and that it works. My process hasn't changed from the one we discussed years ago. So what was missing? Jennifer crouched down and ran her hand along the glowing blue lines. There's silver in this, isn't there? Nikolas nodded approvingly. Go on. What was I missing in the battery solution? Closing her eyes, she built the machine in her head, as her father had trained her to do. She finally opened her eyes and looked at him with a silly grin. Sugar! She said decisively. Such a smart girl, he said, beaming a proud tear in his eye. Unlike her siblings, Jennifer had been at his side while he worked on many of his inventions. Despite that, she never developed an interest in inventing machines herself. Her aptitude lay in other places, farming in particular. She managed to get more than twice the yield from her patch of land than anyone else in town. Sugar? Sugar does this? Asked T, confused. Her mother and grandfather both laughed. Jennifer answered, No, T, what Papa has in there is a mix of different things. It reacts together and makes energy. What it had been missing to work properly was sugar, but I doubt it's anything like the sugar we use in the kitchen. She stood up and looked her dad over. His face held triumph and exhaustion. You haven't slept in days, have you? She asked, mothering him. T giggled. Nikolas tried to wave them off. I have had some sleep. The body cannot function without any sleep, and the mind even less so. Now, is my body content with the amount of sleep I have given it? No, but I will sleep well enough tonight. Jennifer shook her head. Papa, you know what I mean. Nikolas held her hand and looked into her eyes. I had to get this done. Simon St. Malo, I thought I was working on the steam engine. That means he needs an energy source, a big one to drive something. He probably means to transport huge numbers of cannons and soldiers. I did sleep at my workbench as I worked to solve the last piece of the puzzle. I had to make this. Something big is coming. I can feel it. I hope my invention will help our friends, not our enemies. Jennifer listened thoughtfully. Papa, let's talk about that another time. Right now, I'm really proud of you. Mama would have been proud, too. She sniffed, resisting the sadness at the thought of her mother. With that, she gave her father a big hug. After a minute, T realized something. Hey, she said as the hug finished. Your library downstairs. You've already built something like this, haven't you? That's why it is always full of light. A smile crossed Nikolas's face. Not exactly, my darling granddaughter, but yes, that technology is a predecessor to this one. That room I built when Grandmama was still alive. She helped me with it. It was my greatest invention at the time, and has always been a closely guarded secret. I only ever built one other, and like my house, it has an underground stream that makes it possible. Jennifer took the towel from her shoulders, signaling she was ready to get back to work. I'm sure you brought all this material so you two can keep Will out of trouble this afternoon? Nikolas smiled. As T and Nikolas walked the cart to the backyard, T asked, So how did you solve it after all these years? Nikolas chuckled. Always so many questions. I was sitting in my kitchen having a cup of tea, reading my notes and thinking. Notes! The wood trim! So they are about this, interrupted T, jumping up and down in triumph at having figured out the molding's purpose. Nikolas messed her hair affectionately. I learned that trick from my father to hide things in plain sight. Like him, I like them to be beautiful, like the ideas they are hiding. Every time I had an idea, I wanted to remember about this, I added it to the molding. When it was full, I took it down and made a new one that summarized the best ideas. I've done this many times over the years. When I put down my teacup about to start taking down the molding, I knocked over the sugar jar. As the sunlight bounced off those wonderful crystals, the idea hit me. William was in the backyard and noticed them coming around the side of the house with a cart. Hello, Nikolas, he said. What can I help you two with? Nikolas's eyes twinkled. Who wants to build some sail carts? Captain think Gabriel Archambault didn't love his job. As he'd risen through the ranks over the years, he had dreamt of what he'd finally be able to do when he became the top boss. The closer he got to the top, however, the more he came to understand how and why the captain's job was so tough. It took an immense amount of energy to move the mountain that was the kingdom's bureaucracy. Gabriel suspected his predecessor had left all the way home after retiring, free of the curse of the job. Two things he hated about his job were dealing with money issues and complaints. People always wanted or needed things he couldn't afford to provide. The complaints were worse. If a kind soul said "bless you" after someone sneezed, then a third person was at the ready to complain about it. A knock came at his office door. Gabriel brightened instantly, standing up. "I'm sorry, we're going to have to deal with this later." He looked at his staff, 2 men and a woman, all of whom were annoyed with him for kicking them out of his office at the smallest of excuses. They'd been hammering at him for 2 hours, and he felt no guilt in showing them the door. "Erin," he said, stopping one of his staff before she left, "now that the magistrate has returned, I need him to answer these questions about the budget we sent last month. Could you please go over and ask when we will have our answers?" "No problem, Captain," she replied, and left. With everyone having cleared out, Gabriel waved his next guest in and sat back down at his desk. "So, Doctor, how did it go?" asked Gabriel, rubbing his hands together. The doctor seated himself. "You are right, Captain. Lulu does have a horseman still out there." Pausing for a moment, the doctor looked around nervously. "We know one is dead and another we have locked up in a jail, but there's still one out there. Lulu thinks that horseman came to see me." Gabriel smiled smugly. "He also thinks you're a doctor, Lieutenant. Your plan was a good one. Can I assume he suspects nothing?" The lieutenant paused for another moment, thinking very carefully about what he was willing to say. "Nothing, Captain. We're way ahead of him." Gabriel felt that his lieutenant was hiding something, and almost called him out on it, but decided not to. "Tell me what happened. I want to hear what the man is thinking." "Well," started the lieutenant, "I think he mentally cracked. We broke him." "Already?" Gabriel appeared pleasantly surprised. "What makes you think that?" "Well, he hasn't shaven, his eyes looked crazed, and the way he talks, it's different. He's probably so used to things going his way that one hiccup was torn his whole world apart. But this is just more of the same stuff you told me last time." Gabriel had been disappointed then, too. The lieutenant's first visit had been in the company of 2 guards, one of whom recognized the disguised lieutenant, and had a hard time playing along with the ruse. Before Lulu could catch on, they'd left. "What else?" asked Gabriel, leaning forward. "Well," said the lieutenant, trying to come up with something, "he knows what he's going to see for the magistrate's stone. He thinks someone will rescue him tomorrow afternoon." "Really? Anything else?" said Gabriel, disappointed. "No," replied the lieutenant, looking at his feet. "This is awesome!" yelled T, racing down the mountain road toward her home. Her father and grandfather watched with pride as she expertly zigzagged around the bumps and stones in the road. William loved seeing his little girl enjoying something they'd built together. "Pull the stick by your right knee, that's the brake!" he shouted. As she pulled it, a wide piece of metal dug into the leafy dirt and brought her to a stop right in front of them. "This is better, yes?" asked Nikolas as he started to inspect the sail cart. T jumped out. "This is way better than the one Ellie and I put together. I like that the sail and mast can quickly go up and down. Having a brake is good, too." Nikolas collapsed the telescoping mast and turned the sail cart over. He checked the wheels and underside. "When you're on a hill like this, you don't need the sail. Gravity will do all the work, unless for some reason you need to go very fast. With practice and a strong wind, you can even go for a reasonably inclined plane." "Pardon?" said T. "He means a steep hill," said his father. "Oh," said T. William switched to his dad is telling you something important voice. "Now, T, remember that if you're going too fast and aren't careful with what brake you could flip over." "Dad, I had that figured out already," replied T cheekily. "Hey," rebuked William. T smiled apologetically. "Sorry, I gotta get carried away over there." William nodded. He loved that his daughter had spunk, but he felt responsible to make sure she understood what the border with being rude was. He turned to his father-in-law. "So how did the sail cart do, as well as the others?" As well as the others? Nikolas finished his inspection of T's sail cart. I think I need to take this one back to my workshop. There's a wobble in one of the wheels. I have a special tool there to help me fix it. I'll fix it and bring it back in a couple of days. You can take the others to your friends, T." "A wobble," repeated William, subtly unconvinced. T was a little disappointed, but understood. "Okay," said William. He knew Nikolas was up to something, but trusted him. "Now we've got to take a look at that old tree." Lulu chuckled to himself in his cell as he scratched his thick black beard. He joked with his imaginary cellmates. "Do you believe that, Lescott? All he had to do was give me my lunch, but no, what does he do? Gave me the rest of the information I needed and allowed me to recommend changes to the guard schedule." "Oh, excuse me," Lulu said, pretending to talk to the now departed Gar. "You can remind me of the hero of the day was again. That was an incredible shot. I wish to offer my congratulations from one professional to another." Duh, responded Lulu in a silly voice for the guard. That was the captain's girl. She knew, and her name is Egelina Marie. She shot you really good. Lulu nodded. Yes, she did shoot me well. You know, guards like her are special. Can she come here so I can congratulate her tomorrow at noon? In the silly guard voice, Lulu answered himself. No, she's going on a date with that Koshin brother, the one who pounded you. They'll probably go for a walk up the mountain while her brothers stay home. They live over at... Lulu sat down on the straw mattress, laughing. My friends, common people are so weak-minded. They're easily mesmerized, easily enchanted by words. These sheep, they forget that I am the wolf.